Excellent. Okay, we're back. A good ship practice. As always, I'm going to kick off, let the guests introduce themselves and let them tell us something about where they are right now as well. So over to you, Christian.
Right. Hello, everybody. My name is Christian Bröer. I'm a sociologist at the Department of Sociology, University of Amsterdam. Well, where am I right now? I'm trying to get immersed into this online conversation while still being kind of external, observing the situation myself. So there is an extra anthropologist in the online room now, also observing you and me.
Ah, there we go. What do you do
What do I do in terms of what?
in terms of research?
In terms of research, I'm mainly concerned with issues of health, broadly defined, that could range from ADHD or depression to more recently, the human microbiome. So I'm interested in how, attention to the human microbiome also reconfigures subjectivity in everyday practices.
Okay, over to you, Natalia.
Thank you. So we invited you on our boat because we know that you are working with theories of practice, and I wanted to ask you when and how and where did you first encounter practice theory?
Well, I guess the first encounter was very early on in undergraduate studies through the work of Giddens and Bourdieu mainly, I would think. But I wasn't that, I mean, that seemed kind of useful as a general approach, but I've always been more drawn to microsociological approaches in a wider context. But I'm starting there, so interpreting everyday life and interactions is more interesting. And then different theories of practice seem more suited to that end, among them Elizabeth's work.
And what attracted you to practice theory?
Sorry, can you say it again?
Yeah, of course. What attracted you to practice theory?
Well, I guess it was more of a pragmatic move. A couple of years ago, we were asked if we wanted to participate in a larger study in Amsterdam, which was mainly and still is mainly quantitative, pooling data of the municipal health service. But they were also interested in everyday life practices at the household level and asked us if we wanted to participate in the study. And then I was wondering how to be attentive to wider structural differences, what the municipal health service was interested in, and health outcomes at the individual level, while I must say, I never made that link. I don't want to make that link because then you become part of the intervention. So I said, okay, let's sit kind of in the middle and be mindful of the wider structural context and the health outcomes, but look, as it were, in the middle, how practices mediate between structural difference and health outcomes. So at that point, I thought a practice approach might be more useful than just looking at interaction as such, but bringing some kind of structure. What is also important to say there is that we didn't design the study with a very clear question. We wanted to collect data to enable post hoc questions. So we are now already gathering everyday life observations and interviews for a couple of years in families with young children. It's called the ethnography of the Safati or Safati ethnography. And we are collaborating with 30 families, and some of them we have followed for 4 or 5 times. And we are now in the phase of being able to pose questions about everyday life, about practices like toothbrushing, eating, weaning, and so forth.
And what practice theoretical ideas are you currently working with? Which ones do you find helpful in developing your research agenda?
Yeah, I guess it's Elizabeth and Stanley's article where they lay out elements of practice theory that inspired me and my colleagues. So be it, as I just said, the study, the ethnography, the ethnographic panel is quite open. yet you want to bring some structure to it. So we were figuring that basically looking at everyday practices with the idea of materiality, meaning, and know-how would help us. And we were curious to find out how you could deal with developments of practices over time, because we were following families and we were interested in the question. We start with the first child in a household, and then we were figuring that with the first child a lot of changes happen. Can we see, kind of qualitatively measure these changes and see if practices develop, come up, emerge, and then stabilize in the first years of life, in the first years of a newly forming household? So those ideas would help us to bring some kind of structure to our ethnographic panel. We did struggle, though, with the idea of how practices are tied together, and then the concept of bundles might help, but we didn't find that helpful. What we're also struggling with is how to delineate a practice in terms of bundles, or very often it's delineated by its empirical label, like eating or sleeping. But then when you look at it, it's all intermeshed and it's all interwoven, and it's different in its various manifestations. So we are now looking at ways to delineate it differently.
Interesting. So I'm gonna hand over to our anthropologist, who might have additional questions about the ideas and the research itself.
Yeah, so I'm wearing my old lady anthropology hat, and that's because I'm interested. I'm going to ask you in a minute about tribes and those sorts of things. But first, I'm curious. What does practice theory have to say about the microbiome?
Well, that you could ask questions about how household practices relate to microbial composition in your gut or in your mouth. So you could think of toothbrushing as a practice, and there are various ways of doing that, and they are embedded in all kinds of household practices, which then affect to some degree the development of microbiota in your cavity. So that could be one way. Another could be that attending to the microbiome might change people's know-how and might affect the way they brush their teeth or their children's teeth. So it's a loop, and we're interested in this loop. Basically, I'm interested in political subjectivity, I would say. So how an intervention is also a political intervention and then shapes our subjectivity.
So are you alone in this? This is my question about tribes. Are you working on these topics? Are you in a, I mean, I'm really curious to ask about the plant as well. Is that a bed behind you, or where are you actually? This stripy thing, what is it?
It is a mattress, but I have covered it with a custom-made piece of cloth. It's an old mattress.
Yeah.
I can put it on my balcony and lay in the sun if I want to, or I can put it on the deck of the ship and enjoy the sun while sailing.
Okay, you're really on board. Yeah.
I'm on board. And this is a palm tree,
Wow.
which I found next to the garbage, and I cared for, and now it's really strong and beautiful.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Anyway, are you part of any tribe beyond the jungle and the deck and everything?
Yes. We are a group of 7 or 8 people, 8 including myself. 4 junior, 4 more senior. And recently someone asked me, don't you have a name for your group? If I would be the leader, then it would be my group. So I don't have a name for my group. I call it the Safati Ethnography Group, or the microbiome research is part of what's called the Meta Health Project. And then you have the Micro Health, all kinds of projects. So I use the project names, but actually you could call it the Socio Health Group. So it's the sociologists and anthropologists of our department working on issues of health from a qualitative, interpretive, practice-oriented approach. So the social health group includes 8 people.
So what about the wider world? You're on the map, and where would you like us to go next? This is your chance to sort of point the boat into a direction to somebody that you would like to meet.
Yeah, conceptually, I'm at the moment interested in time, the relation between time and practice. So I guess Dale Southerton could be interesting
Yes.
to sail to, or maybe
Excellent. Bristol, we've got Holmes there. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe Ted Schatzky could also be interesting more for a general approach. But I'm also curious to hear if you have suggestions. If I say time, who do I need to talk to?
Well, Ted, we've already spoken with, but Dale is an excellent suggestion. I think we should, I don't know if he's on the map, but we should get him on the map if he isn't. But when we go away, we'd like a little souvenir of our visit. So do you have something that we can remember you by?
I've also prepared a picture and a video about it. And the souvenir is actually, this is the souvenir. It's a pañuelo.
Okay, great.
A pañuelo is used in Cuban salsa for dance moves. So you could clean your head with it, you can wave with it, you can also kind of attack someone with it or make all kinds of moves. Both women and men do this in Cuban salsa, in Cuban rumba. And of course, you can do all kinds of things with it. Wear it like this or wear it as a hat. You can filter coffee with it.
Yeah.
Or you can wipe sweat off. It's something you can use in many ways, and I will provide a picture and a video of it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So that's the end of our very exciting and interesting little trip. Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Christian. It was great to meet you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Let the ship sail.